So I was asked by Hazan to come here and talk to you guys a little bit about, talk about the generational aspect of entrepreneurship, how it can be something that doesn't have to stop with one person, but can continue with generations. So I don't have that much experience. Of course, my father will tell you more about that aspect. I wanted to quickly define entrepreneurship for you, so we have some point of reference or a frame of reference before we move on to talking about details of that. So I went to one of my favorite websites, Wikipedia, and I found out what they talk about as entrepreneurship in there. It says, an entrepreneur is a person who has possession of a new enterprise, venture, or idea, and is accountable for the inherent risks and the outcome. This may result in new organizations or may be part of revitalizing mature organizations in response to a perceived opportunity. Entrepreneurship involves not only the process that leads to the setting up of a business entity, but also the expansion and development of an ongoing concern. So, as we can see in entrepreneurship, it involves something a lot of people can call it as a risk. And definitely there is a risk when you go out from your comfortable job and your secure salary and jump into the world of insecurity and unknown things. But there's a lot of benefits in that as well. A lot of people sometimes see the security and the comfort in working a job for someone else, but others may not see that. They may see that it's bogging them down and keeping them away from freedom. From becoming a better person who's more motivated to do something that they're passionate about. And that's what I feel that becoming an entrepreneur can do for you. You can really go after your passion, and the sky is really the limit. It's not limited. Whatever you put in, you can get that much out. It's not just that you keep working harder and harder, and you're working on the same salary structure as whatever you've been getting. So you can put in a lot more effort, and of course get a lot more profit out of that through becoming an entrepreneur. It gives you a lot of freedoms, a lot of more independence, and the choices to kind of make on your own, be your own boss. I guess a lot of people like to say. There's a lot of responsibility in that as well. It's not just all rosy and just great. There are definitely difficulties in that, and I think my father will tell you about some more of those difficulties in detail. Every entrepreneur goes through that at some point or the other, so don't think you're not going to have them, because you will. And these are just struggles, and Allah has described them for us in His book and through His Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. That there are struggles in every aspect of life, whether you choose to go for them and fight them, or you can just be sitting there and have struggles coming at you just by being in a regular job as well. I wanted to discuss very, very briefly about entrepreneurship and its history in our faith tradition as well. As we know, many of the prophets that came before were entrepreneurs, including our beloved messenger Muhammad. He used to work as a trader, a person who used to take goods from one place to the other. And in the history that it tells us, that is how he found his first wife, Khadija radiallahu anha. She was a person who was also an entrepreneur. So we can see this as another example of a female entrepreneur in our faith tradition. That she was actually the one who eventually employed him to do some of her business and dealings for her. So we can see so many examples in our own faith traditions that these are things that were done by many of the righteous people in the time that the message was revealed. And then many of the companions of the Prophet, some of them so famous, some of them not so famous, were part and parcel of entrepreneurship. They had their own businesses, they had their own trade going on, they had different things that they would be doing as businesses for themselves without having to rely on others for money and for sustenance. Then I'd like to kind of gloss over the history of our country and entrepreneurship in our country. As Ihsan had told me earlier, he wants me to kind of talk about very briefly how my family is in business of, I guess, entrepreneurship. But this is not something new to us. It is something that's been ingrained in our country. As we can see from the beginning stages of our country and the industries that started from the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and their very well-known families all the way down to the Ford family, and even now we can see the richest family in America is the Waltons. They have these Walmarts everywhere, right? It's a tradition of entrepreneurship. When Sam Walton started that business, he didn't just leave it after he died, but his children took over, and they continued that progress of that business. So it's not something that you just make it and it just ends, but it's something that can continue for future generations as well. And that's something where leads to kind of my story, where my father used to work as a professor in a university in California. And I think many of you, he was telling the story earlier, but he decided to kind of work on the side as well. And eventually what led to him starting his own business, and I'll probably let him tell you that story. I don't want to ruin it. I probably don't know all the details. I was very young. But he did end up starting his own business and created it from ground zero to what it is now, and which led me to realize that I would like to do something like this as well. I don't want to go into the ranks of just becoming a person who works that 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job, but I want to do something which I'm passionate about, which I care for, and something that can eventually make me profitable. Because I do believe that if you have a passion in something and you're good at it, then that will bring you some benefits in terms of profit and money as well. And we know that in our beliefs that that God gives you your sustenance no matter how you get it. So it's really up to you to try out what you like to do, what you're passionate about, and something that could help others in place of things that maybe you aren't so passionate about. Because many people go into jobs thinking that they're stable, but who says what's stable or not, except for the one. We don't know. But some industries that were very stable at some point become unstable. And some things that are so unstable become stable later on. So you really don't know. So it's very important to find your passion and to find something that you are interested in. And then join that. We were talking to some individuals earlier about this and how some people really don't know what is their passion. But it's important to kind of invest some time and think about it. Think about what you like to do, what you're interested in, where you can help the society, and eventually improve not only yourself, but other people around you. So my story, it started in college. I was telling someone else earlier, but I had a senior project. I was a computer science major. I had a senior project, and I really didn't know what to do. So I came to my father one morning and I said, I don't know what to do. So he gave me the Wall Street Journal for that day he was reading, and on the front page article, it says 7,000 people died. I was like, what does this mean? 7,000 people are dead. And when I read further into the article, I saw that 7,000 people in America, the most prosperous nation, the most technologically advanced nation, and 7,000 people are dying because of human errors. And so I thought, how can I solve this problem? Mostly it was related to adverse drug events, allergic reactions, duplicate therapy of medication, various other things that can happen based on human eligibility issues of the actual script of the medication. So many of these things can be solved, and they're not very difficult. So I went and I said, let me work on this problem. And at that time it was just a theory. I'm going to work on this as a senior project. I'm going to present a paper. Hopefully I'll get an A. And then that'll be the end of it. Which led me to something else, which I never even thought of. But what happened with that was that I wrote a paper. It was about 15 or 20 pages with all the ideas I had in there. And I presented it to my professor, and he said, this is great. Why don't you do something with this? And I was like, okay, what do you want me to do with it? And I didn't know. I was like 20 years old. So he said, you should think about doing something. This is a really good idea. So I showed it to my father, and he said, we should apply for a patent. And I didn't really know much about patents at that time, but I said, okay, what the heck, let's do it. So we applied, and then I forgot about it. And got back to school, got back to, I eventually started working with my father after I finished. And a couple of years later, if you don't know the patent process, then how it works is basically you submit something, and the government is so inundated with so many different patent applications, they don't have enough resources, human resources to cover those, is what they do is they don't respond to you until at least 1, 2, sometimes 3 or 4 years later. So a couple of years later we get a response, and it was basically a denial. for the test. And at that time, I had already forgotten about what I even did, that I had submitted this application. So I looked back at it and I said, well, let me look at what are they denying me this for. And they denied it for a totally weird reason. The application was for a process that would write a prescription and send it through the internet directly to a pharmacy, so avoiding any handwritten errors through that process. And what they were saying that I was making a mobile phone, and it has nothing to do with the other. And then I said, no, this is not a mobile phone, this is a process to submit a prescription electronically, and I wrote back to them. I said, no, we found another application that's very similar to yours, and they sent it back to me. And then another denial, and then we said, okay, what is this one? And that one turned out to be a process of dispensing medication, like physical medications, through some device. And I said, I'm not actually dispensing medication. I'm sending a script from one place to another electronically. It's as simple as that. There's no actual physical medications involved. So we had to fight it. It took a couple of years, and we believed in that product. We believed in that process, and we decided to fight it because we knew it could help people and avoid like these 7,000 deaths every year. Why are they happening? They shouldn't happen. So we decided to fight it, and eventually, by the grace of Allah, we got that patent. That's when we decided to start working on a product, which eventually culminated to me starting a company, and the rest is kind of history. Alhamdulillah, we got the product, we got certified by the government in 2005, and the product is now nationwide. We are approved. Ohio is very, very strict. The pharmacy board is really strict in the state. It took us a couple of years to get approval, but alhamdulillah, a couple of years ago we got approval in Ohio, so we have clients here as well. I'm not sure if Cincinnati we have any. I know we have some in Columbus, but inshallah we'll get some here too. I'm not sure if we have them, I'd have to check, but I think we do have in Columbus for sure. We do have other products we're working on. We have a full medical records management software that we're getting ready to launch in a few months, inshallah. And we have a practice management software which comes with medical billing and appointment management. And that's the history of my company up till now. We have 35 employees in Pakistan. We have a development office over there. And we have about 10 or 15 employees here in the United States. We do sales, marketing, and high-level development and support over here. And that leads me to my father. He's been an inspiration to me, and I'm glad he's here now to hopefully inspire some of you as well. He's helped me and basically my whole life, and through the process of working with him for a couple of years in his business, I learned a lot. I learned basically how to run a business in its entirety, and it's much better in a practical sense than taking any MBA course or any master's or anything, because it was a practical lesson, and I learned every aspect of the business in that a couple of years. I learned management, accounting, sales, marketing. And the best thing I learned was how to have a concrete vision for the bigger picture. Because sometimes we get lost. We may start a business and it may be at a certain stage, and then we don't grow it further than that stage because we think we've maxed out our potential. But who's to say it's ever maxed out? We should keep trying harder. So you should have a bigger vision than just something small. And that's something I really learned a lot from my father. And hopefully he can talk some more about that. But the most important thing I think I learned from his struggles and tribulations was to not go back down to the bottom again and start. He always tells me that I raise you up to this level. Now you need to bring yourself up to this level, not start from here again and try to come up here. You need to go up. And I think Hazem wanted us to talk about that, is that when somebody starts to become their own business or start an entrepreneurship, then they're doing it for not just themselves, for their families as well, so that they could have a better and brighter future in the future, inshallah. It's not to go and say, I'm going to do something, and then my children will go and do something completely different. That's to help them, and it doesn't have to be like, I'm not doing exactly the same thing as my father, but at least it helped me to understand the concepts and understand that what it takes to become and have your own business. So I don't have to start from scratch. I have learned so much from that. But like I was saying, the most important thing I think I learned was the concept of having true trust and faith in Allah. Because without this, there's nothing. There's nothing else. You could keep working and doing whatever you need to do and establishing your business, but like I said, there's trials, there's tribulations, and there's struggles that will come. But if you don't have that true faith, you don't have that trust in Allah, then you will eventually give up. You will give up. And that's not what it's about. It's about keeping and trying harder and struggling so that you can become better. Like Allah says in His book, and He repeats it twice because it's so important. He says, with every hardship, there comes a relief. He says again, with every hardship comes relief, because this is the truth of life. I mean, He is the one that has made us as humans, and we know He knows us better than even ourselves. So He knows that sometimes the hardship will come, but He also knows that He'll bring relief with that. Inshallah, I'll bring it up with my father now. Some of you may have read about him, I think, by coming here, but he is the president and founder and CEO of a company in Southern California called New World Medical. It's a biomedical devices company, and they have products in well over 100 countries that they're selling. It's definitely a multinational company, distributors all throughout the globe, and I'll like to call him now to continue with the program. Inshallah, thank you very much.